Shalom from Israel to all of the Daystar viewers around the world. I'm Moshe Bar Tzvi, the producer and founder of Israel Now News. We at Israel Now News are dedicated to bringing you the full story and the truth about Israel from Israel. It's written in the Holy Bible when David said in Psalm 25:5, "Lead me in your truth and teach me, for you are the God of my salvation. For you I wait all the day long." And God says in Zechariah 8:16, "These are the things that you shall do. Speak out the truth to one another. Judge with truth and judgment to peace in your gates. And always search for the truth, and the truth shall set you free." John 8:31. I hope you enjoyed the program. God bless you from Jerusalem. Shalom, shalom.
Welcome to Israel Now News. I'm Yochanan El Rom.
And I'm Erin Viner.
In our top story, heavy fighting between Syrian army troops and rebel forces in the Quneitra region of the Golan Heights has had a spillover effect into Israel. An IDF officer was moderately wounded by stray fire from Syria. Several mortar shells also fell inside Israel, and the IDF shot down a drone that entered Israeli airspace. Defense Minister Moshe Ya'alon said Israel will not allow any breach of its sovereignty or attempt to harm civilians or soldiers in the north, whether deliberate or accidental. The hostilities between the warring parties have also taken a toll on UN peacekeeping forces. Erin Viner has more on that story.
Yes, Yochanan. Radical Islamists belonging to the al-Qaeda-linked al-Nusra Front overran the Quneitra crossing, located on the frontier between Syrian and Israeli-controlled parts of the Golan Heights, seizing 44 Fijian peacekeepers with the United Nations Disengagement Observer Force in the process. Among their demands, the rebels said that they would trade the hostages for humanitarian aid to be transferred to the territory they control near Damascus and want the UN to declassify them as terrorists. 75 other UN troops belonging to the Philippine contingent had been besieged by the group but managed to escape across the border into Israel. As a safety measure, the IDF declared areas near the border closed to civilians.
There has been a dramatic increase in Palestinian violence against Jews living in Judea, Samaria, and in eastern Jerusalem. A 3-year-old girl suffered head injuries when the bus she was riding in was stoned as it passed through the Jerusalem neighborhood of Pisgat Ze'ev. On the other side of town, a Jewish home in the Abu Tor neighborhood was attacked with 3 Molotov cocktails. A firebomb was thrown at a historic 19th century Jewish home in Ir David, just outside Jerusalem's Old City walls, sending one victim to the hospital with 1st and 2nd degree burns to his head. A bus traveling near the Tepuach junction south of Nablus was hit with 2 Molotov cocktails. An infant suffered light wounds from an Arab rock attack on a car she was in at the Yitzhar junction. And north of Hebron, a Jewish man was critically injured when Palestinians pelted his car with a barrage of stones, causing him to lose control of the vehicle. The rise in terror follows a Palestinian Authority official urging Arabs to attack Jews living in the heartland of Israel.
A recent survey indicates that 1 out of every 6 French citizens supports the fanatical Islamic State, formerly known as ISIS. The poll was conducted by ICM Research and revealed that an astonishing 16% of the French population holds a favorable opinion of the terror group. France is home to nearly 5 million Muslims, most of whom are of North African descent. At least 900 French citizens are known to have traveled abroad to fight with jihadist groups in Syria and Iraq.
2 million Israeli children headed back to the classroom after a summer shortened by 50 days of war. Teachers and parents breathed a sigh of relief that the ceasefire with Hamas terrorists is holding, allowing schools to open as scheduled on September 1st. Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu and Education Minister Shai Piron were on hand to welcome eager young students at a school in the rocket-battered town of Sderot. The government said the first few weeks of the new school year will be devoted to activities designed to help returning students process and deal with their wartime experiences over the summer.
Thousands of British Jews and their supporters took to the streets of London to protest the sharp rise of anti-Semitism in the United Kingdom. Organizers said that unless action is taken now to force the issue, anti-Semites will continue to go unpunished, and the nature of British society will change. 240 anti-Jewish incidents were reported in July alone. Community leaders say that British Jews are afraid and that citizens are looking to police and the government to enforce the law with zero tolerance against anti-Semites.
Great Britain has raised its terrorism threat to severe, the second highest level. That means a terrorist attack is highly likely, although there is no intelligence to suggest that an attack is imminent. Prime Minister David Cameron took the action as a result of worsening conditions in Syria and Iraq, where extremist groups are planning attacks against the West. Some of those plots are likely to involve foreign fighters who have traveled from the UK and Europe to take part in those conflicts. Britain has a Muslim population of almost 3 million, and it's believed that as many as 600 British citizens have joined Islamist terrorist groups that are fighting in the Middle East.
King Abdullah of Saudi Arabia says that the West could be next. The Saudi monarch said that it would be a fatal mistake to ignore the radical Islamists sweeping through Iraq and Syria, and predicted that if they are not stopped soon, that they will strike Europe within a month and carry out terrorist attacks against the United States in 2 months. King Abdullah said that terrorism knows no border and that the danger that it poses will affect many nations outside the Middle East. He told foreign diplomats stationed in his country to tell their leaders to fight terrorism with force and speed. Nevertheless, the Obama administration says that there are no plans to increase the terrorism threat level in the United States.
Plans to develop biological weapons and instructions on how to weaponize the bubonic plague from infected animals were found on a laptop seized during a raid on an Islamic State hideout in Syria near the Turkish border. Foreign Policy magazine said the computer belonged to a Tunisian fighting with ISIS. He has a background in physics and chemistry. The files included information detailing the advantages of the deadly weapons and instructions on how to test them safely before use in an attack. There was also a 26-page fatwa, or religious edict, by a Saudi jihadi cleric justifying the use of such weapons. Nasser al-Fad wrote that if Muslims cannot defeat unbelievers in a different way, then it is permissible to use weapons of mass destruction.
The hardline Islamic Republic of Iran has been slapped with new sanctions by Washington, and its president is none too happy about it. Hassan Rouhani denounced the U.S. action as an invasion and said that it threatens Tehran's continued cooperation with Western powers regarding its rogue nuclear program. The United States imposed the strict punitive measures on more than 24 individuals and companies that it is accusing of violating sanctions already in place, including helping Iran's missile and nuclear programs and supporting terrorism. The action affects shipping firms, airlines, and 6 Iranian banks. Rouhani condemned the move, saying that it is counterproductive to the diplomatic process. Iran's Foreign Minister Mohammad Javad Zarif also weighed in, saying that his country can take actions that would be unpleasant for the other side.
Plans to attack American targets by the Iranian-backed Hezbollah terrorist organization were dashed when the son of the president of Suriname pleaded guilty to terrorism-related charges. Dino Bouterse had offered Hezbollah a home base in the South American country. Prosecutors said Bouterse had agreed to take a down payment of $2 million in return for allowing Hezbollah extremists to live in Suriname. He also promised to provide the terrorists with fake identities and to arm them with surface-to-air missiles and other weapons to attack the United States and the Netherlands, Suriname's former colonial ruler. He faces a prison term of 15 years to life when he will be sentenced on January 6th next year.
Ukrainian Jews are becoming increasingly concerned as fighting heats up between Ukrainian troops and rebel forces backed by Moscow. Only a few hundred Jews remain in the besieged city of Donetsk out of a pre-war community of 11,000. Jews have also fled from Luhansk following daily shelling and rocket attacks. The local rabbi of Miropol said that Jews in his community have their suitcases packed and are ready to leave at a moment's notice. Residents have begun to empty supermarket shelves, withdraw their savings from local banks, and are now hoarding gasoline. The Ukrainian defense minister issued a dire warning, saying that a great war has arrived on our doorstep, the likes of which Europe has not seen since the Second World War, and that there could be tens of thousands of deaths.
Israeli archaeologists have unearthed a 7,000-year-old copper tool, the oldest metal object ever found in the Middle East. The tiny spear-shaped awl, which had turned to a brilliant turquoise color due to oxidation, was found in the grave of a woman. The dig site is located at Tel Saf near Israel's border with Jordan. Historians say the village had great wealth and commercial ties stretching across the Mediterranean. Another group of archaeologists working at Tel Cabre in the western Galilee discovered what they call a most unusual find, a palace storeroom filled with ancient large ceramic wine jars. The 40 narrow-necked, meter-tall jugs date back more than 3,600 years. The jars were able to hold roughly 2,000 liters of wine. Researchers believe that the fruit of the vine was strictly for the use of the palace owner, his friends and family, and not for the public at large. Adjacent to the storeroom, excavators also found the remains of an elegantly decorated banquet hall. The region where Tel Cabre is located, just east of the modern-day town of Naharia, was noted in antiquity for its wine production. And even today, vineyards and boutique wineries dot the landscape.
Think your family tree might have some Jewish roots? It's becoming easier than ever to find out with the increasing availability of home genetics tests and a growth in popularity of genealogical websites. The Jewish People Policy Institute says that millions of people around the world may discover that they are of Jewish heritage as a result of direct-to-consumer DNA testing. A spokesman for the JPPI told the Jerusalem Post that the findings could offer opportunities for connecting to and strengthening the bonds of the Jewish people. The Institute is encouraging the Israeli government and Jewish communities abroad to make an effort to connect with people who discover that they have Jewish ties. And that concludes the news portion of our show. Stay tuned for Ask the Source with Josh Reinstein.
Hello and welcome to Ask the Source. I'm your host Josh Reinstein, and we're here once again on our beautiful rooftop studio in Jerusalem. My guest today is Paula Queskin, the writer and producer of Honor Diaries. Paula, thank you for being on the show.
Thank you so much for having me.
Paula, tell our viewers about the movie Honor Diaries.
Well, Honor Diaries is the first film of its kind to break the silence on honor violence. And honor violence is something that takes many, many forms to women all over the world. It can be violence to a woman's body, to her spirit, and it comes as a result of a woman going against what's known as honor. And it's an abstract concept, you know, it's difficult to explain. It's when a woman goes against the grain, you know, when she goes against what her family's perceptions of her should be. And this film follows the story of 9 different women speaking out against this type of violence, talking about anything from female genital mutilation to early and child marriage.
You know, Israel is the only place in the whole Middle East that has gender equality. Not only can a woman drive a car and show their face in public, but they could be the prime minister of Israel if they want. Yet in 22 countries around here, women are treated as second-class citizens and sometimes worse than even pets. Why is there no outrage about this internationally?
You're right, there is no outrage about this internationally, and I think a lot of it has to do with this sense of paralyzing political correctness. It's that idea that we do what we want to do and they should do what they want to do. But you know, I really want to challenge this. I want to challenge this with the concept of universal human rights, that all people should be treated equally. Women should not be treated as pets or as chattel or as property to be bought and sold. And we can look to human rights declarations, all sorts of different treaties that many, many countries have signed on to, and I'm not quite sure why there's not more outrage. There should be.
We see on the university campuses extreme liberals coming out against Israel, the only democracy in the Middle East, and at the same time they're standing hand to hand with radical Islam, which is brutally torturing, beating, and sometimes murdering women who are just simply not listening to their husbands or their fathers or their sons. Why isn't there more outrage? How do they explain it to themselves that they're not speaking up for these women who can't be spoken for?
Well, unfortunately, I think that feminism is not what it used to be. You know, I consider myself a feminist, but I really take inspiration from feminists of the past, you know, second wave feminists or those that got us the right to vote. And unfortunately, there's this new feminism that doesn't really take into account the way that women's lives are every single day. They're much more concerned with, you know, the global south or the global north. And it's these abstract concepts that don't ever look at the individual. What are individuals going through? What is the daily experience hands of your sisters around the world. And I can tell you, as you mentioned, here in the Middle East, it's not a pretty picture. Women in Saudi Arabia can't drive their own car. Women are killed in the name of honor when they marry someone that their parents don't want them to. Girls as young as 9, 10, 11 are married to men 3 times their age. I mean, these are serious human rights issues, and I wish people would speak about them more openly.
We hear about apartheid in Israel, of all places, the only place that has equal rights for all its citizens, yet 50% of the population in every Arab country are treated as second-class citizens. They basically have a different system of laws for women than for men. Why is there no gender apartheid speech going on around the world?
Right, I've heard that phrase before, and it's true. Women are treated as second-class citizens. I mean, it would surprise many to know that women in Iran, for example, don't have inheritance rights. When they go to testify in court, their testimony is counted as half that of a man's. These are very specific things that are systemic, that are part of these countries' not only culture, but their legal system. So we have something that we can point to. We can point to their legal system and we can say, this is not right. On the books, you're treating women as second-class citizens. So I think that if we want to start looking towards change, we have to be really clear about these systems in place and then challenge them.
There's also a second-class citizen profile for different religions. If you're not Islam, you're also a second-class citizen. There's a religious and gender apartheid. How do these two play together?
Well, one of the cases that's been on my mind lately is the young woman in Sudan who, was called an apostate for converting allegedly to Christianity, and then she was threatened to be killed. Well, it's interesting. We profile a woman in our film. Her name is Fahima Hashim. She's Muslim, but she feels like her religion has been completely co-opted by extremists. And you can see the work of extremist Islamists working out both against women and against minorities. There's obviously a connection between these two. So this woman being both a minority and a woman, she really had a horrible situation. Thank goodness the international community spoke out. And I think we can see that when the international community does speak out, there's a possibility to save women's lives. So hopefully people continue to do that.
Where is moderate Islam in all this? We always hear about Islam as a religion of peace. There's moderate Islam. Why aren't they speaking out against these honor killings and torturing that's going on?
Well, actually in Honor Diaries, we do profile modern Muslim women, and there are several featured in our film. Raheel Raza is an incredible example of a strong, passionate, moderate Muslim woman who works towards interfaith. She's originally from Pakistan and she lives in Toronto. She's always reaching out to different people from different walks of life, faiths and backgrounds, and she's one of the many women who are rallying to try to create more moderate voices and to make those voices louder than the extremist voices.
Paula, there are literally tens of millions of people watching this show. What message do you have for our viewing audience?
Well, I'd like to tell all of you definitely to go over to honordiaries.com, watch the film, download it, host a screening, get involved in this conversation, because we know when we speak truth to power about these issues, we can really make a difference. Take heart in a lot of the different movements around the world, social justice movements, and know that we should be speaking out about this. We shouldn't feel paralyzed in political correctness. We should speak truth to power and get women's voices heard all over the world.
Thank you, Paula, for being on the show, and thank you for tuning in to Ask the Source. I'm your host, Josh Reinstein. Now back to the studio.
This is Jerusalem, Israel's capital city. It's an ancient and modern treasure that is beyond belief. There's a little bit of Israel in all of us. Come find the Israel in you.
Up next, shining light from Israel.
My sister was telling me how unhappy she was in her marriage, and I said to her, come to me. She said, I can't, because I have to think about honor. She didn't want to dishonor the family by leaving her husband. In the end, she set herself on fire. Rabina did, and she died.
concept of honor, it's very difficult to explain it to Western societies.
Honor is something that is carried and contained in women and is there to be guarded by men.
ومن هو وليها؟ أولاً يأتي الأب، ثم الزوج، ثم الابن.
Anything from wearing short sleeves, refusing to wear a headscarf, being seen talking to a man.
Those things can be deemed dishonorable.
Thousands of women have been detained for dressing un-Islamically. Like this woman screaming as she's pushed into a police car.
The honor system in Muslim majority societies is really the basis of a lot of harm that is perpetuated against women.
It's systematic, institutionalized misogyny.
I was crying and begging him to stop. Then he put his hand on my mouth like this. I couldn't breathe. I was crying, but he used me anyway.
The issue of forced marriages, child marriage, and honor abuse is a worldwide problem.
When you do dissent with what is portrayed as mainstream belief, you are ostracized. There are threats of murder, there are threats of rape, physical mutilation.
It's important to talk about what happens physically so that every human being, male and female, understand that the genitals of the female are cut.
We don't need sympathy, empathy, pity. We need systematic change in the Muslim world.
From Bahrain to Egypt, women have raised their voices and their fists in demanding universal rights.
People of all backgrounds can make a difference.
My sisters in solidarity, there has never been a better time than now to turn the tide.
We need a whole army of women helping other women.
We will speak up for our rights and we will bring change through our voice.
Anywhere else, this would be a vacation by a lake. But this is the Sea of Galilee. The wonders of Israel are beyond belief. There's a little bit of Israel in all of us. Come find the Israel in you.
Please stay tuned for the ICEJ report from the International Christian Embassy, Jerusalem.
We are here in Haifa at the International Christian Embassy's home for Holocaust survivors. And let me tell you, this house here in Haifa is one of the most exciting projects which the Christian Embassy has undertaken over the past couple of years.
The ICEJ's home for Holocaust survivors consists of 9 buildings in one Haifa neighborhood. This small community serves as a haven of love and security for more than 70 elderly Israelis who survived the Nazi campaign of genocide. Thanks to the consistent giving of Christians just like you, we are able to provide these precious survivors with everything they need. The facilities currently include a synagogue, a medical and dental clinic, and an intensive care wing.
During the 65 years of the existence of the State of Israel, this is the best thing that Christians and Jews have done together. It's beautiful. It's all about this mutual giving and serving. Christians and Jews together. The media loves this. They appreciate the social solidarity that the Christians express towards the Jewish people, and of course towards Holocaust survivors, who right now are in the last decades of their lives. So we need to appreciate them now.
We invite you to partner with us in this important work in Haifa by making a donation today. Your donation will assist us with providing for the day-to-day operational costs at the home. Roughly $1,250 per month per person is what it costs to provide for the basic needs of the residents. Your giving will make a significant difference in the lives of these beautiful people, so please consider how you can financially support us in this important project.
Our goal is to have 150 survivors residing here, maybe even 200 Holocaust survivors. In this very moment, there are more than 1,000 survivors who have registered. I hope that the assistance of the Christian Embassy will be able to give everything we can to these people.
We go outside to eat in the restaurants, we go to the sea. We go to the theater, yes, lectures from the outside. And the food is still good. It is all excellent. Here I have friends, and I'm feeling here good. I am happy here, no?
If you have been supporting our project in the past, I want to personally thank you, because through your help we could host more than 70 Holocaust survivors in our home in Haifa. And as you well understand, once the house was completed, we are still challenged with ongoing running cost of this center in Haifa. And I want to encourage you to please consider to help us with the ongoing cost, but also with the cost to expand that center even more. You need to know that this home in Haifa has an incredible impact in Israel and also in the city of Haifa. Countless dignitaries came to visit us in this center. The media were reporting about what Christians are doing to support Holocaust survivors in the land of Israel. So your donation is not just impacting the survivors, but it actually touches the entire nation of Israel. You need to know that the vision of the International Christian Embassy in Israel is to show another face of Jesus and of the church to the Jewish people. And this is exactly what our home in Haifa is accomplishing. And I want to invite you again to partner with us. We are your outstretched arms and your feet here in the land. We are your embassy here in Jerusalem. May the Lord bless you richly out of Zion.
That's all for this edition of Israel Now News. I'm Yochanan Elrom.
And I'm Erin Viner, reporting from our studio in Jerusalem. Please join us next week for all of your Israel updates.